All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Thank you for everyone joining us today. I'm going to ask for Nicole's help right now. Is there like a chat feature on this, Nicole? Do you see it? So I want to later, I'm going to send out.
Yes, there is a chat. It's at the bottom.
Okay.
Or you can press Alt and H.
Ah, okay. That's where I'm seeing it now. So I'm going to probably try to share some URLs to everyone later so that we can all kind of click along in a minute. But I just wanted to make sure I knew where that was. So sorry about that. We do have the Q&A, the Q&A panel there as well. So if you have questions, feel free to plug those in at any point, and I will try to do a good job on answering those. But again, I guess I'll go ahead and get started here. So thank you again for joining us. We are really excited about this kind of ongoing webinar series connected to the new features we just launched with Impact Dashboard. Today, we're going to be focusing on how to get the most out of these new features, and there's a couple things that we can do as existing users to try to, get everything set up for ourselves with some of these new features and just really kind of continue to wrap our head around all the different features. We're going to have some webinars later this week and next week with some other topics, so we'll kind of step right through this. So first up, here's just, again, a little bit of a reminder about the new features. So we kind of touch on almost everything that Impact Dashboard does as we kind of think about it. Impact Dashboard is helping you collect economic development project information, organize that information, and then analyze it through the impact analysis features. So in terms of collecting, we've got a brand new data request feature where you'll be able to create templates for data forms and then receive those in an inbox. Around organization, we've got a brand new project fact sheet and then these new project type and key industry tags. And then around analysis, we've got some additional fields and calculations related to visitor spending and hotels. And then this really great new feature around impact analysis for BRE projects. So for businesses that are expanding in your community, being able to clearly separate the current operations from that expansion. So that, again, is kind of the big idea of what's going on here in September 2020. We released the features over the weekend. So a big applaud to our developers, Josh and Matt, for helping us kind of build all these features and then get them out to you. We're super excited that everyone gets to see what we've been working on for the last several months. But here's our agenda for today. We're going to, first off, confirm that everybody's seeing the new features. So we're going to make sure, in some cases, for some of, including me, for some of the super users, if you kind of, when we flip that switch, so to speak, that the new software is out there, you may not be seeing those if you've got a lot of the browser data saved in your browser. So you might be seeing some of the old pages. So I want to just make sure everybody's seeing the new features, and I'll show you how we can check that. So if you have kind of the ability, maybe of another screen, or just open it up another window, minimize me for a minute. If you want to try to pull open Impact Dashboard, your own account, and follow along with some of this in just a minute, we can just make sure that you're seeing those features. The other thing, and this might be another reason why you want to have your account open and ready to look at, the second thing we want to do today is review the customization page of my account. So this is where we're going to be able to kind of set some fields. We may not do it today, but you can maybe come back to it. At least you'll be able to see where you would be able to set some of those customization features. And then one of the things I want to do today, I assume we're going to have time, is to help you or let you experience the new data form as a prospect. So we've got this new data form. It's done in a wizard format with this whole data workflow, and we can kind of look at what that looks like in terms of the branching and so forth. But I think it'll help everything in terms of when you get around to configuring your own data form. You'll have a better sense of it if we kind of step through it today. So I've got an example of that we can all look at together. So that's what we're going to be using that chat feature for. I'll send you a link in just a little bit. And then finally, the last thing for today, I'm just going to show off a few call them bonus features. They're new little elements that we added in Impact Dashboard that don't necessarily get their own headline, webinar for, but there's a couple extra things that I think are pretty cool that we added that I wanted to highlight. So again, this is a series. I know it's a little bit, might be a little much for some folks, but it's a series of 5 webinars we're doing. So as we see here, the updates were released yesterday, so you should be seeing them now. Today, we're talking about how to get the most out of those new features. Now on Thursday, we're gonna do a deep dive in the new aspects of evaluating a BRE impact analysis. And so this again is tying to how you can enter information about the current operations of the business separate from the expansion activity, be able to kind of do some different analysis depending on whether you want to look at just the expansion impact or maybe the combined impact of their existing operations as well as the expansion. And so that's what we're going to focus on entirely on Thursday. And then next Tuesday, September 22nd, a week from today, we're gonna go deep dive into the whole data form process. So how we're creating those templates and how we're sharing those forms, and then how we see those forms in progress or get submitted back to us. And we'll go fully into that. And then next week on Thursday, we're going to just do a recap and kind of do a Q&A. So if if you have specific questions, certainly you're on here today, feel free to ask questions you have. But if we get to the end there, we'll kind of touch on all of the new features again on the 24th, and then kind of go in whatever direction folks want to go in terms of looking at some of the features or just specific questions around that. So that's the big picture. Here we are on September 15th. Again, the new features are live. So they were released over the weekend. They're available to all users. They're accessible in all previously created scenarios. So kind of everything is working backwards and forwards for us here. Nothing's getting lost along the way. Specifically, what is new? We've got this new data form inbox and the ability to create templates. We've got a brand new type of report, the project fact sheet. We've got a few new category tags for project type and industry. We can do a lot of fancy things around that BRE impact analysis. And we've also got hotel nights, taxes, and visitor spending in there. If you want more information on this, you can go to this link. It might not really be clickable in the, let's see if I can grab that. I don't know. Let's see. I might be able to send that to you just if you want to get to it. Let me grab the right there. I'll pull this back up. But if you're trying to, follow along, that URL I just put into the chat. I believe it's gone out to everyone. That URL you can click on, and this is just essentially a blog post that kind of walks through all the new features, has a short video at the end. I say short, it's about 17 minutes, but it goes through at a high level each of the features that we're going to be kind of walking through over these next couple weeks. Thank you, Nicole. I need to send that to attendees. Cool. Well, that is the URL Nicole just sent, and I'll be sure to send it to the right list in the future. Okay, so that's the overview of the features. Now we're going to get into it. So first things first, for anybody that is able to kind of pull up Impact Dashboard kind of on the other screen, take a look here to see if you're looking at the new features. This is kind of a screenshot of my screen, but we can see this little red circle down here on the lower left, and we've got three icons down there. You can see there's a telephone in the middle. So there's 3 icons and there's a telephone in the middle. If you're not seeing the telephone, which is kind of a new piece of, it's basically just a support link, but that's one quick and easy way to tell if you're seeing all of the new features in the app. So if you're seeing an older version of the app, what you're going to see is really just that little user icon. That's for my account. And then this log out icon. You might only see 2 if you're looking at the older version of the app. Now, if that's the case, what you need to do is clear your cache. And so again, you're going to be in Google Chrome. I think the safest way to do this, just so that we're ensuring that we're doing it right here, what we can do, and so if you're following along and you need to refresh and just make sure you're seeing everything, again, on this menu, this left-hand navigation menu changed a good bit. These changed too, but the easiest way to see it, I think, to me, is looking down here and we see this telephone for the support. That was not in the old version of the app, but it is in the new version. So if we're seeing that, you're good. You don't have to do anything. But if you're not seeing it, what you can do, I'll tell you, it'll be a couple clicks. So what we'll do is hit a right click here, just anywhere on the screen on your browser where you're looking at Impact Dashboard. And so if you're seeing the old version, you'll hit a right click and we'll hit inspect. That'll just pull up this thing here that we don't really need to worry too much about. That's just kind of showing us a bunch of weird code. But once that is up, it'll allow us to do a different type of refresh where we're going to clear the cache and then reload the page. So if we've got this open, the way we got it open was by clicking a right click and then choose inspect while we're on our page. And now if we go up here to that refresh or reload button, we want to hit a right click again. And so if you hit a right click, you'll be able to see you can empty cache and hard reload. Now, if you do that, that's going to make sure you're getting the current version, the latest version of the website with all those new features. So if people are seeing the old version and trying to follow along with this step and it's not working, I guess send me a little question or put it in the chat. Let me know maybe you're having trouble or maybe everybody sees the new version of the app and I can move on. But again, just a couple things. If we don't have that inspect open, we can't do that special fancy empty cache and hard reload. So again, if you're not seeing the little phone icon on your version, you want to hit inspect. And then once that's open, that bottom window is open, we'll click up here with a with a right click, and then we'll hit empty cache and a hard reload. And now when you do that, we can get rid of this after everything reloads. We can get rid of that inspect window and close that out. We don't need to see it. And this is getting kind of weird and wonky and technical. You don't, the problem is, this happened to me and it may happen to some of our users who have used the app regularly, and you've got a lot of that, the cache, the app kind of gets saved in your browser. If we're just trying to clear that out so that we get the latest, greatest version of the app, we can tell it to use the latest one right now. If you don't do this, so let's say that you were seeing the old version of the app, you wouldn't have that forever. You know, eventually your browser is going to wake up and show you the new version of the app. But if you were seeing a problem, that should solve it. If you're still not necessarily, if you don't feel like you're seeing the newest version of the app, give me a call, send me an email. We'll walk you through it kind of on the phone maybe, and make sure you're seeing the latest and greatest. But again, to confirm it, you can see that little support menu item, the telephone in the lower left-hand corner. That was not in the old one, but it is in the new one. So if you're seeing it, you're all good. So I'm going to jump back to my PowerPoint here. That was what we were confirming we were seeing. And now, just as I mentioned, if you're getting hung up even on something like that, which is kind of a one-time thing, we won't really have to worry about it ever in the future. But if it's something like that, or you just have a question about a particular project, feel free to call me. Just my phone number's right there, my email's right there, whatever's easiest. I know sometimes when you're working on a project, you just want to get the answer right away. That's sometimes the easiest way to do it. We also have, as I mentioned in the previous webinar on Thursday, we've got this new Impact Dashboard knowledge base. This will provide kind of a lot of documentation in kind of text format, but there's a lot of screenshots and videos as well. And then we also have kind of an updated general support page. These are things that we were just looking at with that telephone icon being access to support. It's going to take you to the support page. From there, you can get to the knowledge base if you need to. So this is what the knowledge base looks like. This is where you can search or just look up certain things. The support page, where that's going to take you, it's going to help you get to the knowledge base if you need to. That big link up here is the knowledge base. But then there's also the ability, this will have my contact information, phone and email address, but also the ability to just schedule a meeting. If you want to talk to me next week about a project or something, you can schedule that here. If you need to talk to me right away, feel free again to call or email. All right, so the main thing that we want to address today as we talk about the updates here are these customization steps to take right now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to review the project types. So the project type is a brand new field or input for you. And then I want to encourage you to enter your key industries. So we've got project types and key industries. And then we're gonna touch on project tags again, the kind of the generic project tags, which have been around for a little while, just from, seeing users. We can see some folks use those tags, some folks don't, but just kind of talk about why you might want to use those again. And then finally, around this whole idea of customization, we're going to talk about square footage types. And so first off, we're going to talk about the tags for just general tags, as well as project type and industry. So on this home page now, the screen where we can see all of our projects, we can see these tiles look a little bit different. So as we're looking at this screen, we can see we've got these two blue boxes, and then we've got a gray box here, and a couple of places we've got two gray boxes. So what are we looking at? And if I click forward here, I think I've got it written out for us. So we can see the project name is just as it always has been there at the top in all capital letters. Then this first blue box is showing us our project type. So in this case, we've categorized this particular project as a business retention and expansion project. And then the second bar we can see is listed as advanced manufacturing. That is our industry type. And again, these are flexible. You can create your own. They don't have to be, you won't necessarily have advanced manufacturing if that's not something you're interested in. Just looking quickly, I see a question in the chat. Will the video of this session be available? The answer is yes, we are recording it. Last week, Thursday, I screwed up and did not record it by accident, but I think we are recording today, so it will be available on YouTube, or we'll send you the link in a little bit. So we're talking about industry tag here and project type, and then the regular old tag is this one in gray with the tag icon saying fiscal year 2020. So that is kind of what we're talking about when we say project type, industry, and tags. We can see how they appear here on the list of all of your projects. We're going to also see some places in the actual app and in the reports where these tags are used and they are actually displayed on the actual report, and that would be specific to the project type and industry. Tags will not appear on your reports. So let's go through these again. I kind of talked about this a little bit last week, but I think it's important to refresh or to kind of go through this again, because this is a new feature for us. So again, prior to the update, we had tags. So these are kind of the old tags you might be familiar with. So they just help you categorize similar projects based on a specific attribute. And so these you can type in, just kind of adding a tag on the project control center. Say, you wanted to use fiscal year 2020, or maybe you wanted to identify a project as being located in the business park, or maybe it's in the downtown district, or maybe it's based on a particular job grant incentive type that you've got. So you can use tags for anything there. And as we see here, projects can be assigned multiple tags. So you could have a project that is fiscal year 2020 and it's located in the downtown district. So you might put two tags on one project. And then as it notes here again, project tags do not appear on the reports. So you can use internal lingo that you don't necessarily want to broadcast to others when you print off the reports. You can do that with project tags. You're not going to see those anywhere but on the user's side of the app. It will not be on the printed reports. Now, project type and industry are going to be included on the reports. And these kind of have some similarities, but I'll first go through project type. So for project type, this lets you categorize projects using your economic development organization's terminology. So some examples of what we're thinking about here are business retention and expansion, or recruitment, or new and startup. And so these are examples. These are decent examples, but they might not be the exact terms that you want to use for your organization. You might call them something different. You might want to do BRE and kind of shorten it a little bit, or whatever. Or maybe you say relocation as a category. Maybe you don't even want to put the word startup in yours, but you can modify these. We'll show you how to do that in just a minute. But these are these examples. I think they're pretty solid. And so we actually plug these in as the defaults for your project types. So again, if you don't want to use these particular project types, you don't have to. You can wipe them out and put in brand new ones. But just as a starting point, you've got some project types built into your account right now as it stands. Now, again, these project types, you can only assign one project type per project. So it's either a recruitment or a new project, right? So it's not, you can't put both tags on there. And again, the project type is going to appear on each of the reports. We'll see where that comes into play in a couple screens. Now, the industry tag has some similarities, as I mentioned, to the project type. This allows you to categorize your projects based on your organization's key industry groupings. So some examples of this might be like advanced manufacturing, like we already saw on the previous page, or aerospace and defense, distribution and logistics, hospitality and tourism. There's, you know, a million different examples we could give there. And since there's kind of a million different examples and everybody's going to have their own terminology, we did not build in any industries for you in advance. We have kind of a dummy placeholder, and then we want you to go in and enter your key industries, and we'll show you what that looks like in just a few minutes here, and where you would do that, and then how you would make those changes. Again, a project can be assigned only one industry tag, so it's either advanced manufacturing or it's distribution and logistics. You can't have both. You can't stack those tags on each other. And again, industry tag is going to appear on all of the reports. So that's going to play into when you're naming these internally. You're going to be able to, you know, type in whatever words you want. So if you have a typo, let's say, in your industry tag, that's going to show up on the report. So you would want to go in and fix the typo, for example. Or if you're using too much abbreviation and maybe it's not you know, you can't really interpret it, but it's going to show up on the report, you might just want to use the more formal version of something. So here's just kind of like a little bit of an overwhelming screenshot of where we will see some of these project type and industry tags. So let's see where we should start. So on this one, it's kind of on the front. This is a screenshot of an element that's on our project control center. And this is actually where you can, one of the places you can select which type and industry you would want to configure here. So this is where you would apply a regular tag. You'd start typing, but here you can select from a drop down and choose a particular project type or industry. When you get into the reports, this kind of partial screenshot that you're seeing here is of a summary report, and you can see we've kind of plugged in the industry type and the project on the summary report. Now this fact sheet, this is one of the new elements of the app. This project fact sheet is going to list them in the upper right-hand corner, kind of pretty big, but helpful to kind of identify a particular project. And so imagine printing off, you know, 5 different project fact sheets. You'll have kind of the main detail about them in the upper right-hand corner. Makes it nice and organized. And then over here, we don't see very much of it, but this is a detailed report, and we're going to identify, make sure that at the very top of it, we're identifying the project type and the industry. So that's where we're going to see it throughout the app. If we click here, now we see the customization screen of our My Account page. So let me go into my real app and we'll see what this thing looks like. So I'm in my kind of test account here. If you've got yours pulled up, feel free to kind of follow along by looking at your app now. What I'm going to do is click down here or hover over the My Account section of this left-hand navigation. So on this My Account, I'm going to click on that. And this is where, if you have never really clicked in here before, this is where you can set your color scheme. So you can kind of choose between one of our pre-built color schemes. You could update your logo. You could change your contact information. You can even change for the username that's associated with your account. You could see your user guide or other documents that we might have uploaded for you. But for right now, what we want to focus on is this customization tab. This is a brand new tab for us. If we click here, this is going to show us that screen that we just looked at in the PowerPoint, but now I can kind of click around on it. And so what we're looking at is all of our project types listed out here. Again, these are my default ones, so you should see these same ones unless you've already gone in and modified something. But this is all of our project types of business retention and expansion, new and startup, and then recruitment. You can see I've got these numbers behind it here too. So business retention and expansion says 3. Well, that's telling me I have 3 projects that I've already applied to this project type tag to 3 different projects. And for new and startup, I've only got 1 of those. And for recruitment, I've got 3 with that tag. So If I wanted to, maybe I wanted to change the name. Maybe I didn't want to use an ampersand or something weird. Like let's just go here. I can hit rename and then go in here and type and if I click out of there, now it's saving that. And actually I applied it to those 3 that were already tagged with business retention and expansion. It's gonna keep that tag. It's just gonna update what the label says. I'm gonna go back because actually I did like the ampersand. It made it a little bit shorter for us. So I'll do that and then I'll hit save there. If we don't like these and we just want to start all over, we can hit delete and kind of delete each one of these. And then we can hit new here and create a brand new type. So maybe I wanted relocation as an example. And I hit create, and now relocation gets added to my project types. Now, down here, so that's project types. That's our first box. Down here, we've got industries. And again, if you're looking at your account, you'll see one that probably says something like enter key industries, and it'll be kind of a little bit of a placeholder. The idea here, this is where we want you to go in and type in your specific industries. So you can see these are kind of my made up kind of fake industries, but they might look similar to ones that you would have. So here I've got one called advanced manufacturing. Again, this 3 is telling me I've got 3 projects that I've tagged as advanced manufacturing. I've got one for aerospace and defense. And again, I've got one project tagged that way. I've got one for distribution and logistics. Again, we can rename these on the fly. So if I wanted to call this like, maybe it's just distribution. I was getting overzealous. I wanted distribution and logistics. Maybe we'll just change it to distribution. And so we can do that and that just stays as it was. But I'm actually gonna put that back because I like the way that was looking. So we can do that. If we didn't want to use one of these, I can hit delete. If you're deleting a particular tag and maybe some of the districts or some of the projects are using it, it will lose that association or will no longer have an industry tied to it. So then you would again kind of add a new industry and then, whatever we wanted to call it, we could create a brand new industry and it would add it to the list. I'm not going to do that because I can't think of a good one right now. Over here is our project tags. And this is just a listing of all the project tags that I created. If you haven't been using tags, you won't see any tags here in your list. I've got, as we can see, kind of like 4 projects that have the tag fiscal year 2020. If you have a typo or something, if you ever need to come in and kind of modify these things, you can delete your tags from in here as well. So that is where you're going to be able to customize these. Again, what did we do? We were down here in my account. And then once we got to that screen, we clicked on the center page. That's for customization. So this is where you're going to find that. You might run into this. You might be trying to set an industry because that pops up right there on the control center. And you might see that your only choice when you're just starting out, again, this is a brand new feature. When you're starting out, the only option for you would be enter key industries, and that's not very helpful because that's not a legitimate industry. So what you would want to do is come into our My Account page, go to customization, and enter in your industries. Again, these are going to be, you'll do this one time and then you'll be on your way and you won't have to really mess with this in the future. But you certainly can come in here at any time and edit them or add new ones or move things around however you need to. So let's get back to the PowerPoint here to keep me on task. The next thing that I want to talk about, which we kind of saw briefly and I completely ignored, was around square footage types. So here we have in the new version of the app here, we've got the ability for you to collect information on the amount of square footage associated with a project. And we can actually break out the square footage based on square footage types. So if we were asking a company, how much space do you currently occupy? So tell me about your current operations, for example. They might tell us, I have 50,000 square feet of office space and 100,000 square feet of warehouse space. So total of 150,000 square feet. In another instance, we might be trying to understand what the project is looking for, so what the prospect is seeking in their new project. And here they might tell us, I need 250,000 square feet of manufacturing space and then nothing else there. So these use types that we see here, we've got manufacturing, we've got office, we've got This one says retail/restaurant, and then warehouse. These you would want to set within your account. So within your account, just like you're setting up your kind of target industries or your key industries, you can set up your square footage types. And if we look just to kind of connect up some of this, we'll show, say for example, on the project fact sheet, we're going to show the amount of square footage someone would be seeking and what use that might be. So that's kind of where this is all going. So we're going to let you collect it, and then we're going to present it here like we're seeing in the project fact sheet. Now, just a little bit about the square footage types. Again, this is helping you collect information regarding the space needs by the type of use. These are the defaults that we've got built in right now. The categories are manufacturing, office, retail, and warehouse. And then again, this helps you identify the square feet created by type, and it's going to be included on your fact sheet or ultimately just saved in your account so that you can keep track of that square footage. So we'll go back, and this is kind of just talking through. So this add new square footage type or delete or rename, you'll do that by going to My Account, click on Customization, and then go to your square footage types. These square footage types are going to be inputs available to every project. So when you're sending out your data form or when you're just plugging in the information in an actual scenario, you'll want to include all the various types that you would want, the full range of square footage types for all the projects you evaluate. So let me jump back. I'm going to go back over to the actual app. And now again, this box that I completely ignored earlier, these are the default square footage types that I mentioned. These should be what everyone sees in there right now. And for example, if we want to edit one of these, we can do that by modifying this. So I think I had one where I was doing like retail/restaurant, so maybe we wanted to do that. I actually don't want to do that, so I'm going to go back and edit that again. Maybe you want to add another one that's, maybe you do one with warehouse, or you do like light industrial or heavy industrial. You could come up with different categories here. These aren't, again, these aren't fixed in stone. We think it's a good place to start with these 4 defaults that we plugged in there for you, but feel free to modify that as much as you want. It's probably a good idea, just like with these industries, it's a good idea to jump in there and do that now, and kind of do it one time. And so you're not adding different types over time, So if you're working on a manufacturing project this week and then next week you have an office project, just go ahead and put in the range of the full range of the different types so that you have them built in for you. Now we had a question here come in while I was talking specifically about these square footage types, and asking, will the square footage and use types play a factor in calculating revenue or property taxes? The answer to that is no. So the square footage types are really just giving us another kind of piece of information about the project. So it's not going to get worked into the property tax calculations, and because you told us it was 250 square feet, we know something about that. That's not going to be the way it is. We're still going to be relying on that capital investment amount and then kind of translating that into taxable property that same old way. Now, if it can help you in a couple regards as kind of the individual looking at the app, using the app, if they tell you we're going to have a 1 million square foot warehouse facility, and they tell you that it's going to cost $1 million to construct that facility, that can help you kind of say, wait a minute, something's not right here. Is the scale of this project really 1 million square feet of warehouse space, or is it $1 million of investment? And so maybe through other pieces of information, you could sort that out yourself, or maybe it's something you go back and say, hey, you told us it's a good bit of square footage, but that doesn't really relate to the amount of investment that you're making. So what's going on here, just kind of on a rough per square foot basis, it can help you answer some of those things. But again, the answer to this question about does the square footage type play into calculations or the analysis, it does not. So good question. Thank you for bringing that up. Let's go back to my PowerPoint and see what I'm talking about next. So square footage types. And again, this is that same screenshot of where you would make those adjustments right here. Now, what I want to talk about is this. So hopefully, I guess I'm going to transition here a little bit and talk about the data form and just try to get everybody up to speed on that a little bit more. But again, the two big takeaways for today should be, make sure you're seeing the new app. If you're not seeing that little telephone in the lower left-hand corner on your menu, we want to just make sure you clear your cache, and we can help you do that. And then number two, understand that we've got these new project types, industries, square footage types that you can configure, and there's going to be, some defaults are in there. You can modify those if those aren't what you want to use. And specifically for industries, it's just going to say enter key industries, and that's a prompt to you to go into the customization area. Again, click on my account in the lower left-hand corner, clicking on my account, and then click on customization. And that's where you'll be able to plug in your target industries or key industries or whatever groupings you want to give. This is, I haven't mentioned it yet, but this is distinct and different from like NAICS code. So just generally speaking, there could be all different NAICS codes that would fit into maybe this category for, say, aerospace and defense. So it's not really going to be tied strictly to a NAICS code or anything like that. The NAICS code is still a field that you'll enter in. It's not going to have any connection to industry. This is just an independent field that you're going to be able to apply so that you can kind of group your projects. So if you wanted to understand, okay, we've had 3 advanced manufacturing projects this year. So the other thing I'll point out just from this screen before I jump over to the data form stuff, we've been looking at this and it tells us how many projects of a certain type. If I click on this right here, it's going to take me to a filtered list of all of my business retention and expansion projects. Now, again, if we want to rename it, we need to click over here on the pencil. So that's going to let me edit it. But if I just want to click on this, it's going to take me over to the list of all of my projects and then filter it by that project type. So if I do that, just to kind of show you, there's my 3 projects. I'm on my all projects list, and here's all of my projects that have business retention and expansion. Now, the other thing that I can do with this little tag area up here, this little filter, I could find all of my projects that are tagged with business retention and expansion, and also fiscal year 2020. And if I do that, I really only have 1 that meets that criteria. So you can see you can do a lot of things with this filtering now. It's actually pretty handy if you're trying to find things. You can always still search by text if you know the project's name, for example. But that's what I wanted to show there. Now we're going to talk about the data form. So if anyone has questions, if they're running into any trouble on anything that we've talked about so far, feel free to ask a question there. I'm trying to keep an eye on everything. So getting into the data form inbox and templates. Again, I touched on this pretty much the same screen on Thursday when I was introducing the whole idea. Again, we've got this previous feature where we could request some basic information from a prospect, and we would do that by, on that control center, we could say, send a request, and we would pop up an email. We could fill out the recipient of the email and then send a link to that person, right? That was the old way. That's how it worked. You would receive the information right back in that same project, and then you would click a button and create a scenario with the information that the prospect provided. And now, with that previous feature, you didn't have any control over the questions. It was really kind of the fields that we needed to run the impact analysis. Now, the big change that we've made is this ability to add really just almost any kind of question you want to add about an economic development project. So we've got the ability now to configure a custom data form template where you get to choose which specific questions you want the prospect to answer. And then you can share that data form multiple ways. So one way would be to kind of do it, quote unquote, the same way as you had in the past, where you send a one-to-one email. And that would work pretty much exactly the same way. You would fill out a little form, you would send an email to that prospect, you would get copied on it, and away you go. The other way to do this is going to be with a link that you can post on your website. And we're going to look at that example right now as we go through this. That's going to generate this branded data form wizard. It has branching logic built in. The responses, when you get to the very end, the responses are going to be summarized in a clean bullet point outline. And then when they hit submit on that, you're going to receive those into an inbox where you'll be able to kind of create scenarios and so forth from there. You'll also be able to manage in-progress data forms as you're going along. And everything along the way now has been optimized for printing or saving as a PDF. So I know that was a little bit of a headache in the past of trying to, get a good print view, so to speak, of the submitted responses. So if I'm going to share a link with you again. And actually, you know what? I'm going to ask you to go to that same URL that Nicole helped me send out earlier, but I'm going to send it again here. This is that blog post. And if you go to that URL, we're going to go there and we're going to see a page that looks like this. This is our blog that kind of gives you an update on all of the features that we've been talking about, and some information linking you over to the knowledge base. But really what I want to focus on is right at the top of the blog post right here, just one little scroll down, we've got this big orange button that says submit your data. And so this is an example, and it's going to give you the ability to see exactly what your prospect would see when they're filling out your data form. Now, keep in mind, this is an example that I created, so this has my logo, my contact information, but the concept would be the same. So if you were to create a button, and maybe you don't make it orange, maybe you don't say submit your data, whatever you want, you'll be able to create a button on your own website. So on your economic development organization's website, you create a button to allow prospects to submit their information. Now to do that, we're gonna all click through it together. So I'm gonna click on submit your data. So if you want to follow along, feel free. I sent the link to this website here. I sent that to the chat. So if you can find the chat in Zoom, go ahead, click that link, and then you'll be able to then click this button here to start the wizard. So when I click on that, it's going to load up our data form wizard. This is the brand new data form experience that we've built for all of the users. And these are the fields that you'll be able to essentially select from. You won't necessarily need to use all of them. In this example that we're going to be clicking through, I've put every question possible, so to speak, in the form. So if you don't want to ask about, what type of benefits they offer or something like that, that would be a question you could kind of remove from your data form. We'll talk about how you create a data form and all of that on a webinar next week. We're going to get into, again, that deep dive on the data forms is next Tuesday. But for today, I think it's going to be really helpful just to kind of get our bearings and understand how a prospect would experience this new data form. So here on this first screen that we see, we've got a little welcome message. It has this is again this is my logo. This would have your logo, and this is basically custom text that you can type in. So if you don't have anything better to say or can't think of anything better, we'll kind of plug this in for you and say, on behalf of ED Corporation, we appreciate your interest in our community. Fill out this stuff, and then we'll evaluate the impact. And this has my contact information because this is my data form. But if you were putting your data form together, this is going to have your logo, your contact information. So if I hit get started here, it's going to get started with the basics. So we're just asking them very simply, tell us your name, tell us your email address, and then kind of tell us about your role in this whole process. So I'm gonna actually fill this in. It seems odd, but I'm gonna fill it in as myself here. So Paul at impactdatasource.com. Normally this would be your prospect typing in their contact information. So if you're following along with us and if you've gone to our blog post, you've clicked the big orange button, and now you're looking at this, you can go ahead and start filling all this information in. And don't worry about it. I won't follow up with you or spam you or anything like that. It's asking me, and it's asking essentially, what's your role? Are you the business owner, an employee of the business, a developer, a site consultant, or maybe somebody's just kicking the tires? So you could say, I'm just curious. And now I'm going to hit next, but before I do that, I'm going to actually pretend that I didn't put in a real email address. And I was trying to be sneaky. I just want to see the data form. I'm not going to give you my email address. We're gonna stop you right there and say, you got to complete all these fields before you can continue. So we really want to limit or stop people from just kind of messing around and not sending you legitimate information. So this is the only screen that has required information. So we're going to see a lot of other fields. We're going to ask about how many jobs are you creating? You know, do you have any documents you want to upload? We're going to have a lot of different inputs. The only fields that are required are these 3 fields. They have to put something in, my name, they have to put something that looks like an email address here, and then they have to make a selection here for their role. But these are the only fields where we're going to say, hey, you can't continue. So that is the thing to know there. I'm going to hit next, and now this one should let me through because I filled out the information appropriately. And when I do that, it's saying, hey, we're saving your information as you go. We just sent an email to your email address with a link so that you can get back to this data form. So it's a little confusing if you think about it. We clicked on this button and it created this unique instance of our data form. So if we wanted to get back to this, it's a little tricky on trying to figure out how to do that. But the way you're going to do that is by sending that by sending that email to the prospect. So again, if they didn't put in a legitimate email address, that's on them. They will have the opportunity to update the email address later on, however. So let's see. I've got a couple questions here. Let me see if I can get to some of them while we're going. So what if a project would like to preview the form to know what info is needed to complete? If you want to make available to them kind of a static copy of the types of information that's going to be needed, you can do that, and I'll help you do that. But really, this is a kind of a document that they can get started. They don't have to complete in one sitting necessarily. They can kind of, we're saving the information as you go, so they can kind of get in there, figure out what they need. They could even email it to someone else at their company and say, hey, fill out the rest of this. I only have the information on these questions. You need to fill out the rest. So, you know, that's a way that you can do that. Question is, are we able to make questions as they go through the rest of it mandatory? As it stands right now, none of the fields that we're going to look at on the rest of this are mandatory. We can talk about if that's something that we really need to implement. We can talk about making certain things mandatory and giving you the option to require certain fields. But as it stands, that is not something that you can configure right now. And then the third question that I'm seeing here is, are we able to view the forms in progress? And the answer to that is yes. So you'll be able to, and we'll look at that in a minute because we'll be able to see mine in progress at least, and maybe if some other folks have been filling it out, we'll be able to see who's who. But yes, we'll be able to see those forms in progress. We'll be able to see what they've entered so far. So you'll be able to kind of see, you know, maybe they're halfway through, they, you know, maybe stopped part of the way through, and you could follow up with them to say, hey, do you need help? Or maybe they said, hey, I thought I hit submit. Is it not, I'm done with it, but did you not get it? And so if that were the case, you actually could go in and submit it for them yourself if you needed to. So anyway, that is a couple questions there. I'll try to keep moving forward here on the data form. Help us understand your project. We're trying to ask, you know, is this a new business or is it an existing business? So this question is helping us determine, do we want to ask about any current operations? So how many retained employees will this project represent? That kind of thing. So if we say, and let's just do it for the example, we're going to hit existing business currently operating in our community. I'm going to hit next. That's going to set our wizard. So now we've gotten through those first 3 screens. There was the welcome screen. Then there was the screen that we had to put information in. That was our email and contact information. And then we got to say whether we're an existing business or a brand new business. So those first 3 screens, once we get through those, now we see the full wizard. We've gotten enough to figure out what we need to show them, and now we're showing it to them. So here, when we get to that screen, this is we're seeing over here kind of our navigation, so to speak. We've got a current operations section. We're going to ask about the expansion activity. We've got a spot for supporting details. We're going to ask for details about the company, and then we're going to give you a chance to review it. So that's where we're navigating here. Over here, this is what we're asking about. We're kind of giving them a big heads up. So right now, we're going to ask you about current operations so that we can distinguish that from your expansion plans. And so right now, focus everything you tell us on the current operations. And so you'll be able to see how they can do that here. As we look at the other pieces of information on this screen, we've got a save and come back button. So let's say that they moved through this and they had initially given us kind of a fake email address because they weren't so sure about what they were doing. If you hit save and come back, this is going to say, hey, we're saving your progress. Please confirm your email address. And then we'll send you that unique link to your email address so you can return to where you left off. And it's plugging in the email address that I had typed in on the other page. If I had put in something silly that wasn't a legitimate email address, I would have the opportunity to update that right now and say, oh yeah, I'm actually filling this out for realsies. Let's put in a real email address. But if I hit send on this, it again would send me another email saying, your data form's in progress, click here to get back to it. And so it's going to help you make sure they can get back to their data form. The other thing that we have up here, again, this is our logo for our organization, so that would be your logo. If I click on it, it's going to have your contact information. And actually, it would normally only really have about this much information on it. But for our purposes and for kind of showing you how everything works, I added a ton of additional information so we can kind of see this workflow flowchart. So this is my contact information. This is my contact info, but your data form will have your logo, your contact information. And as I mentioned, you can add and remove questions that appear in your form. But to help us kind of understand how we're doing this whole thing, we've got the flowchart for the data form wizard. And we can see we've got those welcome screens. Those were those first 3 screens. And then we got to that business type. We wanted to know, were you a brand new business or were you an existing business? If you remember, in my case, I said I was an existing business. So I'm going to be asked about my business's current operations. And then once I do that, it's going to ask, are you planning an expansion? Yes or no. And if I say, yeah, I'm doing an expansion, it's going to ask about those specifics. And so we see that kind of coming down the line here if we're looking over here on the left side as we're looking at this. So we've got our expansion specifics there. That's going to be how many new jobs are you hiring? What's your capital investment? And then you can see how this branching is working. We're going to get shot over here to a spot where we could end up in some other ways as well. But this is going to allow us to ask for supporting details. So maybe, tell me a little bit more about your project, write a description or just any other background. And then there's another option maybe to upload documents. So if you want to have them upload particular, documents to you, you can do that as well. And then we want to just get some background information on the company itself. So we're asking kind of first about the project. So what are they planning to do? And then who's the company behind it is one of the later things. And then finally, we're going to have a review page where we kind of repeat back to them their information, and we'll be able to see that in like a bullet point summary. And then finally, they're going to hit submit. So this is just for our purposes. I threw this on here. This is kind of, again, some extra spice that I added to my data form so that I could show you all here as we're looking at it first time through how this data form wizard works. Now, we also have a handout for you, so you don't have to always keep coming back in here. We have a handout that's a PDF file. If you just want to jump straight to it, I'll put this in the chat, but it's also available from that blog post. So if we go back to our blog post, there's this handout for Impact Dashboard users, September 2020. And if you click on that PDF right here, it's going to take you to this file here. And this is, turns out to be about 8 pages, but most of it is just telling us the information that we talked about today on this webinar. So as we see it, we're just talking about how to customize your account. This is a PDF you can kind of take with you. And then the cool thing is when we get down here, we're going to show you that data form wizard flowchart that we just had. So you have a copy of this. This will be in that PDF. And then here's all of our fields that we can ask for. So this is going to help you kind of wrap your head around all of the fields that are possible to be asked. So we can see things we want to ask about the timeline. So when do you plan to break ground or begin renovations? When will you begin operations? All these different things that we can see on this, and we keep scrolling. There's lots of fields all the way through. So that's out there for you, that PDF that I just sent the link to in the chat. I'm going to get, this was really just clicking on that contact information, but it's kind of cool to see this flow chart here alongside the menu, so you just kind of can connect up some of those pieces. If I were to actually fill this out, I would kind of click through next and type in values, and this is where we're seeing our square footage types and so forth. I'm actually going to kind of abandon this one, so I'm not really filling it out. I'm just going to say, nah, I'll come back to this later. I got the email from the app, it's going to show me how to get back in later. So that was the prospect kind of messing around, starting a data form. And we talked about this question of, can we see data forms that are in progress? And we absolutely can. So if we click over here, again, we're going to hover on our navigation menu. We're going to see this inbox area. We click on inbox, and it's going to take us to this area where we have inbox, in progress, and assigned. So once you get a data form, it's going to come into, so if someone were to submit one, they're going to click submit, and it's going to appear here in our inbox. Right now, we don't have any submitted data forms, so it's telling us, configure and share a data form to receive some project info. But if I click on in progress, we're going to see this looks like this. We've got a couple folks that were filling it out as we went. But here's mine. This is my September 15th, 2020, Paul at impactdatasource.com. I really didn't fill in much. If I click on this, it's going to give me a view of what I had filled in. Really, I had only said it was an existing business. I hadn't typed anything else in. It would have been cool if I had, because then we would see it populate here. This is that summary I was talking about. This summary would also appear at the end of the data form for prospects. If I go back to my in progress, if we go back to my in progress, we've got other options here. So if I wanted to share this and click on this, and this is going to let me kind of send it back to Paul. Maybe the contact said, hey, for some reason I didn't get those emails. I need to get back into that data form that I started. Can you send me an email with that? And so if you wanted to share an existing or in progress data form, you can do that by email like this, or you can click here and grab this URL. In this case, because this is an in progress data form, this is going to be like a super long URL, and this one's going to let you provide that link back to the prospect to get back into that one that they had already started. So if you see, I'm right back into where I was. I actually hadn't put much in here, but again, I'm right back to where I was. So I'm running up on 2 o'clock already here. So let me just look at some of the questions. Let's see, will there be a record of submission? If someone changes numbers, will we have a record of that? So good question. So if someone fills this out, let's pretend that I did the whole thing. Okay, let's say I own something. Let's say I'm gonna add 100,000 square feet. All right, so I get to my end here. Now it's summarizing it for me. This is pretty cool. So I'm seeing this project represents an existing business. Project represents a site that we own. The project occupies 100,000 square feet, include manufacturing. Okay, so this is cool. It's like repeating back to whatever I just put in. If I need to make changes to anything before I hit submit, it's kind of cool. I can just hit this little pencil icon and I can just do it right from the screen. I don't have to go back up that long menu and make a change to this to say it's actually 150,000 square feet. I can do it right here, and then we can see, okay, project occupies 150,000 square feet. Okay, the other thing, this is a nice data summary. I really like the bullet points. If you wanted to see it, if you just wanted to kind of run it all on one screen, we can kind of do the raw data one, and we can scroll forever, but we could modify any one of these values that we wanted to along the way, right? So either case, if we scroll down to the bottom on this raw data tab, there's going to be, you're going to actually have an option to print it. So the prospect could print this if they want to. The other option is going to be submit and send. So actually, let me just go ahead and do that. I'm going to hit submit and send. It's asking me, hey, once you submit this form, you won't be able to make any more changes. So I'm okay with that. If I hit submit, I'm going to have a message that pops up that tells me, thank you, reach out to you shortly. This is actually configurable, so you can put whatever you want in this little message here. If I hit done, what we can see happened here is the data has been submitted. You can only view and print this form from now on. You can contact, this is my made up Economic Development Corporation, contact ED Corporation if you need to make changes. So if you click on that, you just send me an email, or send the client, essentially, it would send you an email if the prospect is trying to make changes. So I think that answers the question there. If we go back now, so number one, I would have an email in my inbox that said, like in my actual email, that said, hey, somebody filled out the data form. Actually, not somebody, it would say Paul, and give my email address, Paul at Impact Data Source, filled out the data form. If we go to our inbox, we should see now we've got our submitted data form here in our inbox. And from here, well, we can do a number of things. We could click on this and actually just view what they submitted. I can actually print this off if I wanted to, right? I can say this is a PDF. Again, this is that summary at the top. And then if I keep scrolling down, this is where you're going to see all of the data. So if we printed this off, it would be pretty long. But you could save this and keep that PDF copy of it for yourself. The option here is to create a project with this. So this essentially is that idea of being able to create a scenario with that. And you could either create a brand new project or assign it to an existing project, but those are your options there. I'm not going to go through that because we're already at 2 o'clock. I've got one more question. I'll stick around for more questions if folks are asking. But I know it's 2 o'clock, so feel free to jump off if you need to jump off. We should have a recording of this if everything went smoothly on our Zoom side, and we'll make that available to everyone. We've got the other webinars coming up Thursday this week, and then Tuesday and Thursday next week. I'm going to stick around and answer questions, but thanks for joining us. Let's see. If the prospect needs to make revisions, are you able to send a second or third link to the same project? Right now, the answer to that is no. And the way I envision that happening, we can think about, maybe adding that as a possibility. But the way I would think about that happening, so let's just imagine we create a project with this information. We're going to create our project pudding pop. We're going to say create a scenario using the data. And now what we're doing when we do this, we're making a copy of that data form. And we're taking the information that prospect provided and we're pasting it into the scenario. So now what you can do, if that prospect calls you and says, hey, and in my case, I didn't fill out very much information, but hey, I told you the average salary for our existing workers was 50,000. It's actually 55. The way I see this happening is you would come in here and say, okay, I'll change that to 55. And now we're good to go. If you needed to, you could resend a data form to them or have them complete a brand new one. You wouldn't be able to have them pick up where they left off, so to speak. So they're not updating the existing one. They're just getting another shot at it. But we can think about possibly kind of making it a little bit more collaborative like you're describing, but it's not a feature that's available right now. Let's see. Is there a way to add a signature or verification signature or certification field? Sorry, I can't read. The short answer to that is no. So I don't, so I guess if there's some sort of if you're thinking of a DocuSign element, there is not a way to do that. I'm sorry, I'm getting lost by looking at this stuff. I apologize. So there's not a DocuSign or kind of the signature thing. One thing that you could do perhaps, let's see if I can click around on this thing. So this is the one I submitted, but what we can look at is one of the pages is supporting details. I have the ability to ask them for additional background. If you wanted to have them upload some sort of signature, like you have a application and maybe you just say, I certify all this stuff is true and correct, whatever. You could link to that document that they needed to fill out and then require that they upload it. But as a matter of an e-signature type thing, there is not that currently built into things. We can think about maybe doing that in the future. As I think through the process of gathering economic development project data, I see it a little bit different, that maybe you would have a step in the process where you're putting together that, actual economic development agreement, and then signatures are really important. But when you're just trying to collect information, it seems a little bit might not be something you would necessarily focus on, I guess. But not to say we won't add that if everyone wants it. So feel free, send us feedback on that. So looks like lots of people are sticking around, so that's nice. One more question, unless people have more questions, they can feel free to keep typing those in. This question is actually pretty well queued up right here. So can projects include attachments? So a letter to request confidentiality or a payroll register. That's right. So you can upload documents here, and when it's live here, so I've already submitted this one, but you can just drag and drop files here and it'll load up as many files as you put here. And so you might ask for them to, and again, I'll point out right here, this text that we see right now that says, please attach supporting documentation that may be helpful in reviewing the project. That is just text that you can modify. So if you said, hey, you need to attach a payroll register, you need to attach a signed certification, and you need to attach a site plan for the proposed project. You could add that text here. You could even provide links out to those files that you want them to complete and kind of, you know, send back to you and associate with it. And then you'd have it right there when you receive the data form. So again, I don't think I see any more questions coming in. One thing I'll point out, just to kind of tie up the loose end, because I see there's still a bunch of people here. When we create a scenario with the data that someone submitted, and again, this is my project that I created with like basically no information, so it doesn't look like much. If I click over here, this is a whole new area, and we're going to talk about it more in the next couple webinars. We've got this brand new area called Scenario and Company Info. And it's a little different than just the straight up scenario info. So the theory behind things here a little bit is, if you're just trying to run an impact analysis and you don't want to plug in all kinds of things about benefits and square footages, and you're just trying to plug in jobs and capital investment, let's just let you keep focusing on those sorts of things here on the scenario info page. If we want to go a little bit deeper, we can click on Scenario and Company Info. And this is going to show us all of those fields. So maybe you didn't even ask the prospect in the data form about their timeline. Like, let's say you didn't even enable these questions. But when you create a scenario, you're going to have access to these fields where you could actually fill that in. And you can say, okay, actually they're going to break ground March of 2021. They're going to begin local operations in April 2021. It's a real fast turnaround, you know, whatever. But you'll have access to all of those fields, whether or not you included them in your data form or not. You'll be able to fill this information in. And the other cool thing that you'll be able to do is view the original submitted data form. So if you just need, again, because I told you we're making a copy of all of this, and then you can edit that copy, you know, in a scenario just like, you know, kind of the way it works right now. If I click on View the Submitted Data Form, it's going to pull up, and this is in a brand new window. It's going to show me the data that, in this case, that I submitted for this project. And we got this little bouncing loading icon. We'll see if it eventually loads. But the button right here, again, this is in our Scenario and Company Info. So this is kind of, you know, the more, you know, hardcore data entry spot of our app. And we'll talk more about what the purpose of this is later on. We'll try and reload that one. I don't know why. It should just kind of pop up there. But let's see. I know, let's see, no more questions. I still see a lot of folks here, but let's see. Well, in general, this is going to pull up for you. I'm not quite sure why it's not doing it right now. We can look real quick and see if we see some errors, and we do. We'll worry about it later. Let's actually try that button again, and then we'll see what happens. The other thing I wanted to show, which we talked about in the PowerPoint, but I never actually got around to doing. Let me see if I can find it real quick. There were the couple bonus features that I can't remember all of them right now, but let me see if I have them written out. Bonus features. Okay, internal notes, sales taxes, and toggling spin-off impacts. Cool. So let's do those. Did this thing ever load? Still didn't, but normally it will, and we'll make sure it does when you get around to doing that. So the bonus pieces. Number one, we've got internal notes now available on the Scenario Info tab. So we would always have that description, which actually the description moved a little bit. It's down here. It used to be kind of one of the boxes up here. But description is here. This is going to be the one that goes through, and it's shown on, now it'll be shown on the fact sheet as well as the detailed report. So anything you type here is going to be shown there in those places on the reporting. But then, as you know, there's probably times you need to kind of remind yourself of what you were doing in a particular analysis, and you're trying to just keep some internal notes. So now, right here, we've got internal notes. The other thing that we can do, let me just, I really should have filled something out, huh? But I'll put 100 jobs, and let's say that it's in a particular industry. Actually, let's change a couple things. So we're going to change this so this is a little more normal, And let's do my favorite, general warehousing. So I select that, I got my industry, so I've got my multipliers, right? Okay. I've got 100 direct jobs, I got 58.6 spin-off jobs. If I wanted to, maybe someone's telling me, hey, this is a bunch of, the 58 jobs is a bunch of gobbledygook. I don't believe in any of that. So what's the impact if we take that out? In the past, what you needed to do was click on enter custom multipliers and then type in a 1, and you needed to remember to do all that stuff. Now, we got a checkbox where you can just say, nope, just hit a 1 there, and now it's going to tell you it's 100 direct jobs, period. Doesn't say 0 spinoff, doesn't say, it just says there's 100 direct jobs, and we're not talking about any kind of spinoff activity. But if you want to add that back in, again, it's just as easy as clicking that button, and now we see it the way it kind of normally does, where we show the 100 direct, the 58 spinoff, and then the total 158 there. So those were the 2 of the 3. Let me get to the third one, sorry. So we got the internal notes, we've got the ability to toggle spinoff impacts on and off, and then finally, we got a little bit of a hidden feature here that doesn't look like much until we add some other information. Let me, again, add some more information here real quick. So I'm going to put in a capital investment, and I'm going to put in some salaries. So when I'm doing this, it's going to generate some sales taxes for us in this project. And if I wanted to get a deeper dive on, it's $100,000 in sales taxes. Now, as I hover over the word sales tax on this page, it's going to let me pop that up and see the source of that $100,000 of sales taxes. So we're getting a little bit of sales tax from the construction materials, from the materials that might be subject to sales tax. We've got some of the construction workers respending their money. We've got some of the direct workers respending their money, and some of the spin-off workers respending their money. So that's getting us to the 100,000 that we see right there. So that is kind of a nice little feature. So if you're kind of scratching your head on what's going on with the sales tax and why is there so much, why is it not changing, why is it more than you expected, you can click on there and see there's a bunch of places and ways that we're picking up sales tax, and that will give you more information on it. There's another one related to real property taxes. And real property taxes representing land and buildings. So we see one row here relating to real property taxes, but here we can see how much is associated with the land versus the building. In this one, I only put the building information in, so there we go. Let's see. Oh, question. Let's show all of the bonus features at one time. So will the spin-off workers be factored into the sales tax if deselected? The answer should be no. So if I want to remove the spin-off, that's going to be one of those benefits that gets removed from the analysis. So that when we're accounting for those spin-off workers, we're accounting for the spin-off workers' sales taxes. If we remove the spin-off workers, that should remove the spin-off workers' sales tax. So when I uncheck this box, we should see the net benefits number that we see kind of in the background here. We should see that drop by some amount. And when we go back to our sales taxes specifically, we should see the sales taxes, it was around 100,000. It should be a lot less. And when we check the detail, it should be a 0 there for spin-off. So I'm going to hit the checkbox here, or the uncheck box, so to speak. And I don't know if that changed. But we are not seeing that as we look at it here. I'm wondering for the moment if that is something we need to fix. Well, it's certainly something we need to fix. Let's see if it catches it when we refresh the page, which you shouldn't have to refresh the page. Yeah, so that's an interesting question, and you caught us. It's not pulling that out, but it totally should be. I'm not quite sure why that's happening. We can double check and see. It's pulling it there. We're gonna have to look into that and get back to you, but your question should be affirmative. It should be pulled out. It should be, the sales taxes should not be factored in if we're not gonna have spin-off workers. We'll check into why that's the case. Maybe if we do this on a manual override, it'll do it, what we're expecting. Yeah, it definitely worked on that override, but it should work the exact same way. So, well, I learned something. Sorry for confusing folks if that was confusing, but we will we'll make sure that that's working next time you look at the app. So you see now that's pulled out, although it was not the first time we ran through that. So not seeing any more questions, and we're well past 2 o'clock. So Again, we're going to have this video available to you. If you have questions, we're going to be talking about the data form next week. But if you're running into questions now, you're really eager and you want to get your data form set up and you have questions, feel free to reach out to me or Nicole D'Souza, obviously. She's on the call here as well, helping me manage everything. She can help out with anything as well, but feel free to reach out to us if you have questions. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you on Thursday. Thanks so much.